So I want to spend a couple minutes talking about conditional sums. In our class, we do spend time working with them, and in general, this is a very useful part of Excel. What you are doing when you are using the three I'm going to talk about will be sum if, count if, and average if. So what you are doing with each of the three of them, you are going to sum, you are going to count, or you're going to average. However, you are going to set a condition. So Excel will only sum if it meets your condition. Excel will only count if it meets your condition, or Excel will only average if it meets your condition. So what I have here is a workbook that once again I have used in another course that I taught. If you let me know, I can make this available to you for your practice. But what I have here is just a list of different items. I always use my family, so different items that have been sold with the price, cost each. But over here you will see I have a series of functions that have been created. So for the first section, I wanted to sum Rick's sales. So I wanted to see how much just my husband sold. So when I click on that cell, the formula is already in that cell. So if you look at my formula bar, you will see sum if, and then this very first range that you see, this is where you want Excel to look for your condition. So in this case, I want to know how much Rick sold. So I want Excel to look in column C. So I have C4 to C25, followed by a comma. What do I want Excel to look for? In this case, I want it to look for my husband's name. So inside of quotation marks, I have typed his name. After the quotation mark, I put in another comma. And now this final range, inside of its own set of parentheses, I have F4 to F25. This final range here is what it's going to sum. So if an entry in C4 to C25 equals Rick, then it will find the cell in that row for his sale and it will total it for me. With these functions, I encourage you, you can simply type them into the cell, starting with the equal and the sum if. However, until you really get a good feel for these, this is a good time when you may want to use this insert function box. So when I come to the function arguments box for sum if, you will see range. This is the range for the criteria. And then I type in the criteria. Just like previous lessons, you do not have to type those quotation marks in this box. So if I simply type his name in, and then, oh, mistake, sorry. If I simply type his name in and then press tab, it will put the quotation marks in for me in this box. If you're typing directly in the cell, you do have to put those quotation marks in. And then sum range, this is asking for the range that you want Excel to add, if in fact it finds Rick in this column. And just like other uses of this box, it sort of outlines here what appears in those cells or in your criteria, and this gives you a real quick answer. So once I click OK, it shows that Rick sold $4,403 worth of merchandise. The only difference for the last two would be changing the criteria. So I want to find how much I sold in this particular case, or how much my daughter Sydney sold. So sum if will sum if it meets criteria. Count if does just that. It will count if criteria is met. This function is a little easier to build because it's not actually adding anything or averaging anything. So if you look in my formula bar, I have the function count if, and then inside of parentheses, this is the range. Sorry about that. Here it has the range that it's going to look for the criteria. So I want to count how many transactions my husband had. So I have count if, look in the range for column C, and look for Rick. So anytime it encounters Rick, it's going to count it, and you can see that he had 8 different transactions. And once again, I can open the insert function dialog box. This one's a little less complicated. So I have the range and then the criteria. And once again, it gives you the quick answer. Average if works exactly like sum if. The difference here is it's going to figure out the average of his sales as opposed to the total of his sales. And we know that average takes the total number and divides it by the total, takes the total amount and will divide it by the total number of transactions. So here I have average if, the range, it will be looking in to see if it can find the criteria, and then this is the range that it will be averaging. So when I click the function dialog box, you will see range is the range it's looking in to find the criteria, and then once it finds the criteria, this is the range that I wanted to average. In this case, column F is the total price.